Yes, this is again talk on writing well, and I think many other speakers and what you have been listening to now would have covered similar ideas, but this is just my way of looking at it, and that is the three languages way. So what I mean here is you can approach writing a piece of content in different ways, and what you get out of different approaches ends up being so different that to a reader it can look like different languages. It's all in English, but we see that what we get is so different, like that it's not the same language. So here we are going to talk about three such languages. Let's get right on and see the first one. So the first language is what I call tech talk. So this is the result of writing out what you see in a demo. Like you sit next to an engineer or somebody and he says, we've built this feature, this is how it works, this is the first screen, you click this button, it goes here, you type something in this box, and you sit next to him or her and take notes, and exactly whatever you write, if you post it as a web page or a blog, which happens when we are in a hurry, that seems to end up sounding in the language of tech talk. So one feature of that is it doesn't often tell the user where this feature comes into play or how to use it. It just says press this button, do this, do that. But even if a reader who needs that feature badly, seeing this content, it may not strike him that, oh, this is what I've been looking for, because it doesn't set the context. And as we will see as we proceed further, we don't have to say everything that a feature does when we are announcing it outside, right? But often when we take notes and dump it as our release, then it happens that we include a lot of unnecessary details. Also jargon, like mostly if you're talking to a technical person, he will have lots of words that can kind of frighten your readers. Okay, so that's tech talk. Now the second language is what I call the unvalidated claim. That is, you sing praise of a feature as if it can cure half the problems in the world and whatnot, and it's the best thing that this team has ever made, but you don't go on and substantiate it. So if you think about it, even this happens when you have a deadline to post something. You quickly understand from your team what the product or feature does, but you are really not sure by yourself, but you are pushing yourself to work. So you end up writing this an amazing feature, use this feature to boost your revenue and increase the productivity of your team, get more done, all that general stuff, but you are not elaborating, you're not validating that claim of how this new feature or the new tool that you are launching goes on and does that. Okay, sometimes it's not, I wouldn't say this language is always unnecessary when we want to attract people's attention. It helps. Like, say for example, on a billboard we say operating system for businesses, and somebody is just curious, they want to know, but that billboard itself may not validate that claim. So it's okay in such spaces. The same can work if you are writing a copy for Google ad, and then you write something small and catchy without validating. But in a website or in a blog post, in a marketing campaign, many times people already are curious to find out what the feature does. But if they don't, you don't have to attract their attention there, you already have it, right? Like, think of a landing page. A person has already clicked the ad to come there. You made sure that you are advertising only for the relevant keywords and regions and so on. So the person is already invested to an extent, so you don't have to grab his attention anymore. Now he wants the answer, why he came for. So there we need to kind of give them that, and if we don't, they feel disappointed. And the third language is called wow speak. It provides the context. That's the most important things. What does this thing do, or why did we build this? Okay, what problem does it solve, what question does it answer? So that setting the context early on That is something, and the intended readers can relate to it very easily. I'll give you an example soon of all the languages when you'll understand. Who's the target audience for this feature or this release? Is it something that are the words that you use, or are the examples that you are using, the metaphors you are putting across, is it something that they can relate to? Yeah, and most importantly, it's that, oh, what's this? That you would have noticed it sometime. You see an ad, you're like, I want to know more, I want to check this out. So triggering that impulse, is something that WowSpeak does. So now this is like a little bit of theory on all the languages. Let's go straight and see an example. So what you're seeing right on top is an Apple iPod. If this and assume that a marketer has shown a demo of this iPod and he has to write a phrase to market it. Okay. So Tech Talk is what most of the other competitors were doing at that time. Portable music player with 5 GB of storage. Okay. So many people who use a music player may not even know what 5 GB means. Like, think about it. Does your mother know what 5 GB means, or your grandmother know what 5 GB means? But still they use it, right? Never feel bored again. How is this thing stopping you from feeling bored? There's a small white colored box and it says, I will not feel bored, but it doesn't explain how, right? So that is an unvalidated claim. But this is how actually Apple sold this product. An example often quoted within Zoho. They said 100 songs in your pocket, right? That says it all. It says it's small. It says you will never need to feel bored. And it gives people exactly what it can hold. They've even done. So the way I understand what the marketer has done is, the guy giving the demo, the engineer told him this has 5 GB. So this marketer made a rough calculation. Okay, how many songs does that translate to? So today, one song is say plus or minus 5 MB. So 5 MB divided by 5 GB is 1000. Great. So you can hold 1000 songs, right? That's exactly what somebody visiting, somebody who wants to find out what an iPod is, that's a great thing to tell him or her. Okay. So GameScope is a feature that we launched about a year back. This was interesting because this is like a feature that wants to come to many Zoho products. Today it's in Project CRM and it's coming to Desk and it's coming to some other products. To tell you what this feature does, I mean the demo side of it that we got was, it makes boring work that has to be done in Zoho products fun. Like, there is a salesperson calling. Each time he finishes a call, he has to write notes. That's a boring routine work that they don't do. How GameScope works is, it makes a game out of all this. Like, you get points for doing those things. You can create a game between 4 or 5 people in a team, and then you play and you have fun. So even that boring task becomes fun and more people begin to do it. So in CRM, many of the activities can be gamified. Like the example I said, putting notes can be a game. Like, every time you put a note, you get 5 points, and you can set up a game on which person, puts most of the notes. Same way you can have, like, if there's a repetitive task, a person who closes the most number of tasks could be a winner. You can set like 4 hours or 4 days duration and have a game between a bunch of people. So that's what this feature was about. So we thought about how we can, in one short, so I've been speaking for nearly 3 minutes about this, what could be one small phrase that conveys this, okay? And we came up with this: Monday is the new Friday. So what this means is, when you come to office on a Monday, your work is so much fun that you feel it's a Friday. So that is one of the themes that we used, okay? Then our competing products, right? A problem with that was, many of the games only the managers or bosses could start, and they ended up using it for appraisals, like when they have to do the performance review or they have to decide the raise or promotion. They will look at who got the maximum points, who did great in the games, okay? But this is something that can that discourages people against using this game. It's not fun, right? You know that though this looks like a game you can play, it's given to you with an ulterior motive, right? So our GameScope wanted to stay clear about of that. So it's not that only the people in the admin or manager roles can uh, create games. If two people have joined today, they have learned something new and they want to get better at it. Without even the manager knowing, they can start a game and they can play, and the manager or boss will not even know that this game is going on, and they will have fun, they will work better. So again, again a long explanation, I realize, but this is just to show you the process that we went through. Again, how do we give this out in one phrase? Okay, so he said, keep the boss out of the game. And this actually came up in a discussion where Sridhar was there, and then somebody said, keep the boss out of the game. Then he immediately said, yes, I like it. Said, keep the boss out of the game. Then when he said it in the press release, then one of the press persons said, looks like you didn't know about this feature at all because they kept you out. Yeah, and this is to address another concern. Then again, we thought managers have, looks like there is some game feature. Will all these people end up playing and not doing the work at all? Will this be a distraction? Okay, so that is another concern that we wanted to address, that no, people will not stop doing work, but when they do work, they get points. The work itself becomes a game. Okay, so that is one message that we wanted to give out. So we put this on one of the slides. However the games go, your business emerges the winner. Whoever wins, like you say, right, in cricket you see, when some team loses, they say cricket was a winner because they had such a great game, right? So something inspired from that. It says, okay, however these people play the games, your business is the one which ultimately stands to gain. So, and when we use these in our web pages and landing pages also, they did well. So I felt following the language idea that I just spoke to you about worked well here. Now I've told you what this is. Now I want to share with you some ideas on how you can write more of wow speak and avoid tech talks and unvalidated claims, right? So anything can be said. So you will go back after this presentation, say GameScope is such a cool feature and iPod is such a cool thing, but I have this API custom feature, blah 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 thing. How can anybody make it wow? It takes me half an hour even to understand that. So that's where you have to believe. If you understand it deeply enough, there is a simple way to say it. So I myself realized this outside of this work. So when I had a conversation with a friend, so this insurance thing is something that I've always found very, very boring. Whenever someone starts talking about that, something in my head turns off and I don't listen to that conversation anymore, because till now whenever people have been speaking about me, they use words like premium and depreciation and lots of jargon, and it's like, thanks, I don't even want to know about it. Okay, so then when catching up with one of my friends who was in this field, he had a completely different way of saying this. Like he asked me, have you insured your car or something like that, and I was like, I don't even care, I don't even know what that means. And he was like, why do you need it? Then he was like, I'll tell you a story. And I was like, well, what has insurance got to do with story? Then he said, say a person is driving a car and then a dog jumps in the road and reflexively he turns and he hits a child. So he couldn't help it, he just couldn't think. It came in front of him, he's driving reasonably fast, so he just turns and there is an accident. And the child is admitted to the hospital, and for him to survive, they have to do an operation, and the operation costs 50 lakhs. Okay. So now the question comes, who should pay? Okay, the parents say, it's no fault of ours, the driver hit, so we think he has to pay. But the person says, I didn't do it deliberately, it could have happened to anybody, I just at that moment I did something without realizing, so I don't think you have to blame me. So then he asked me the question, so whom do you think should pay in this situation? Then I wasn't sure, so I thought about some time and I was like, you tell me. So he said, what if there was the whole community, a bunch of people decided bad things like this can happen to everybody. Let's all pool in some money, and if some problem like this happens, we will give it to them. Like something like creating a trust sort of a thing for where everybody saves some money. He said, yeah, that's a wonderful idea. I think that's how it should be. Then he told me that's what insurance does. So at that moment, that wow, I was talking like, whoa, this is what I've not been listening to. So after that, I actually went and I started digging up what these terms mean, and I was like, maybe I should get some insurance after all. So uh, the thing here is, he didn't give any details. He didn't talk about premium depreciation and interest rates and all that, but he got me interested to go check that out by setting the context, by talking about the problem it solves, right? So that is the that's what makes you believe that if you go deeply enough, you can write anything in WowSpeak. So now again, you can say, this is what about Zoho apps and Zoho features. So I have an example right from Zoho. So in Zoho projects, again a year back, we had this feature called custom fields. So what this means is, when you create a project in Zoho projects, by default you get all these fields, right? Like you can give the project a name, some description, start date, end date, and all that. So we added a feature called custom field, where you can add more fields. For example, one of the custom fields is priority. You don't get it out of the box in Zoho projects, but you can add a custom field saying you want to say whether the project is high priority or low priority and so on. So you can do it in many ways. Say there is a project manager and there is some other role, say a marketer for the project. You want to add the marketer for each project, that can be a custom field. Okay, so now when say you have to market this, if you look at this like, oh, what is this? After all, some boxes in a page that a user can add. What is so wow about it, right? So at that level you can't do much, but you think further. When does a person use it? How can this help somebody? What could be a good metaphor to convey this to the audience? So when we thought about those along those lines, we felt what this actually helps is to customize a project more to suit the needs of that particular field or that particular company, rather than using something you get out of the box. You are making it fit your needs better, right? So we came up, I think, and when you thought about those lines, tailor and clothes is what came to our mind. So we said project management tailored to a perfect fit, and we did the blog and some campaigns based on this theme. So I'm sure this would have worked better than if we say add more fields to your projects or something like that. So yeah, so first believe that you can, if you think about it hard and if you go deep enough, you can write anything in WowSpeak. Second is, generating interest is more valuable than conveying all facts. So what we tend to do is, in demo a person tells us say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 things that they have done and they are very excited. Then we go back and we think how can we fit these 10 things in the blog or in the web page that we are creating. So that's where we have to be clear that you don't have to say everything. Your purpose is, as a marketer, to get him interested enough to try that feature out, and he'll figure out the rest by himself, or he will read the help documents. You would have seen this new CRM feature called Blueprint, right? So when I last worked on it, it didn't have that name, so it still says process automation, which is what it does. Again, something similar is coming up for Zoho projects also. So I worked on it with the CRM marketers, Jyoti for those who know her, and the demo we got told us these 3 things, and the headings in the first version of the page we came up with was like this: before transition, during transition, after transition. So what this feature does is, it automates, you can create a flow of events automatically within your CRM or projects or whatever, that qualify a lead and he changes to a potential, or even something as simple as you order something and it goes from packing to shipping to delivered. So moving from one stage to another is a transition. Before each transition, you'll have to check a bunch of things, like like whether the thing is actually available and whether we have received all that amount. And during transition is to check if again a bunch of check which make sure that if some files have to be attached for a document to go to the next stage, are they there, all those things. And after transition is notify all these people, send emails to these people, let these people know, all those things. Okay, so these are the three parts of this is how the demo was given to us. Okay, you have a process builder and you can give these three things. So we went and then we thought, can we do this better, and how can we write better? This is what we came up with. So if you look, even the words, everything looks completely different, right? It has a completely different flavor to it. So everyone follows the best path. It's like we were told that if you give a bunch of documents to people and say this is the process, go follow it, or somebody gives a training, they may not actually follow it as it is given. But if it comes from the software, you can click that next button only if you have attached the file, right? So the system makes sure you follow the process. And then we had something called a process builder, where you can just drag and drop and quickly design even a complicated process. So the process itself can be complex, but it's very easy to build it. So again, one of the things that we had to convey was even a person who is not technical, who doesn't know any coding, can build processes and automate them using this tool. So that gave the second title, feed them the info they need, keep them going strong. So again, making the feature look like a beast, which if you feed, will do all the work for you. So these are all things that came up when we discussed, and the thing to note here, it doesn't happen when the demo happens, right? After that, you have to go and think deeper on what more can you say. Again, all this happened when the moment we realized the developer told us these three steps, but we don't have to convey that in our marketing copy. We didn't even cover the three things. What could be the three best things that a new person wanting to adopt this feature would want to hear about? Okay. Seek extra information. What you get by default is rarely enough to write in WowSpeak. I think I already spoke about this. So the person giving the demo, the person showing you the feature often doesn't know what you need to accomplish. So all the information you need, you will not get by default. Okay. So an example for this happened when we decided to write a case study for Zoho projects using Zoho CRM as an example. Our Zoho CRM 2016 launch. It was at that time, and I think even now, the biggest launch that Zoho ever did. Lots of work has to be coordinated, right from the engineers building the features to doing a coordinated PR launch around the world, and review of written content that went to, I think, hundreds of pages. So Emily would have struggled with a lot of it, So a large part of it was coordinated using Zoho projects. So when that was done, the project's marketing team was asked, why not write about this? Why not use this itself as a case study? So the draft began like this. Zoho CRM 2016 was the biggest ever in our history. But then people told me I wrote it. But for a person outside, what does that biggest mean? How do they know how big Zoho is, or what biggest, for if it's our first launch and we launch it to 100 people and they are the only ones who know about it, it could be biggest, right? So how do you give the context? I didn't have this. So the point was, I had to, this is a slightly lengthy blog post, but to get all the information I need, I would stop when writing somewhere, go back to the CRM team, which meant a walk from the shack that the projects team is in to the next building, run after the people, and they'll be busy and they'll say, come tomorrow, and when we go there the next day, they won't be there. So all that is part of writing a blog. So get lots of information so that we can get more stuff like this. What are the features that you launched? A new UI, an inbox reinvented for the salesperson, a marketplace. Totally, there were about a dozen new capabilities announced. They were coordinated launches. Where did you coordinate? Which are the countries where it happened? You know, sometimes it's difficult even to find out which person knows the answer to this question. Like you go and ask somebody, one marketer, I just wrote the web pages, I don't know who did that launch, ask somebody else, you know. So all that running around we had to do. The website with more than 400 rework pages were shipped. Yeah. So again, you know, it involved talking to CRM marketers, CRM developers, people who worked on the launch. So lots of information which I didn't get by default, I had to go and ask, but it seemed worth it because it got lots of responses. And I think last year this is one of the most widely read blogs that we published. So it seems worth the effort. Tell a story. This is something you hear often. People say, tell a story. Marketing is all about telling a story. Your job is all about saying everything as a story. But initially when I heard this, I got, what is that supposed to mean? What is a story, right? Is there a definition? So I've been thinking about it, and here are some ideas that I got. It's a set of events that add up in some way. That's one way to look at it. Draws interests by creating questions in the reader's mind for which they want to know answers. There's a person lying dead. Immediately, you know, who killed him or her? Why did they kill him? And you know, it's not answered immediately. You know, you get more and more questions, and in the end, you get the answer. You know, so that's one element. Has rising tension leading to a climax followed by a resolution. So this is the structure that we see in many stories. Like, you know, think of a movie. It's like, you know, two people see each other, they fall in love, they want to get married, parents don't allow, and suddenly somebody comes and says something, everything is okay, you know. So that rising tension, a climax, and then things fall in place. In the resolution is the end screen where the 40 people family stands, and you know, so you feel it's okay, everything is fine. All movies don't end like that, but you know, this is one of the ways to do it. Okay, so there is actually a more formal, jargonish, tech talkish way to do this, which is called a Freytag's pyramid. You can explore more about this online if you are interested. So this is the structure that is given to many stories. So let me explain what this means. So according to this model, in the beginning of every story, there is a character who wants something. Okay, he wants to get something, or he wants to do something that he doesn't have at the moment. A strong desire. Okay, that's the strong component in every story. So in the exposition, we are introduced to the character and his wants and all that. And rising action is the stage where he sets about getting what he wants, but many obstacles come in his way. You know, that's the parents don't allow, or there is a third person kind of a situation where there are obstacles. And finally, it leads to a climax where there is a surprising turn of events, and the problem is solved in often an unexpected way. And from then on, that's when, you know, lots of the things are explained. So maybe a detective points out to a murderer in a gathering. This is the way Hercule Poirot, Agatha Christie's, you know, detective, he does that a lot. When everything is clear in his mind, he won't tell you. He'll say, let's throw a party, and you know, a bunch of people will come, and one of them will be the murderer, and he'll, in a very artistic way, point out who that murderer is, and he admits and weeps. But only then, you know, we have to wait for all this drama to finish to know, you know, how on earth he figured it out. So all after that turn of event happens is the falling action, and denouement is the conclusion where, you know, the loose ends of the story are tied up and it's taken to a convincing end. Okay, so now I will quickly take you through this through a story that I liked. It's called The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. How many of you have read it? Okay, not all. So, so what happens is there are two, when the story begins, there are two very different people. Dr. Jekyll is a very respectable lawyer, and Hyde is a guy who, you know, he feels angry, he beats up the next person he sees, that kind of a person. He's very wild and unpredictable and all that. But there seems to be lots of ships between them. They meet, and you know, Jekyll gives money to Hyde, and the story is through the narrated through a friend of Dr. Jekyll, and he is completely puzzled. He wants to know why this is happening, why two such different people are, you know, so close. When Hyde does something wrong, Jekyll often, you know, even covers up for him and all that. Why is this guy doing it? And closer to the climax, I think even Jekyll writes a will where he gives a large portion of his property to Hyde. So why is he doing that? You know, all that is building climax. Then in the climax, Hyde dies, and there's a letter from Jekyll which says both are actually the same person, and they change from one to other. And in the falling action, why the transformation happens, and you know, this Dr. Jekyll invents a potion. So he finds being good gets a little boring after some time. You know, he wants to do a few things, but it doesn't suit his image to do that, right? So he feels, we all would have felt that. What if I were some other person, or if I was a 5-year-old child, now I could run out of this room and nobody will ask me a question, right? So it is to indulge in those liberties that he drinks the potion, and as the story goes, he turns, even without drinking the potion, he turns, and to turn it back he has to drink it again, but he runs out of it. All that drama happens. So all that is explained in detail in the falling action, and then the story ends. All this is nice. How do I incorporate this in my next release? Okay, so that's the question that we have to ask to do our jobs. So the way it works in many cases is rising action could be a set of problems that the user. So this is important. Note, you are not immediately saying click this button, fill this box. You are not even talking. You are not ready to even talk about what you have to announce yet. So you begin by telling, you know, many times you will have to do this, but then you will face this problem. This information is there. That information is here. That delays your job. This thing is happening repeatedly. What if there's an automated tool to do that, right? So first you introduce a set of problems, and the tada moment is where, you know, you present your feature and you say, don't worry, here is something that will permanently solve that problem for you, and you introduce your feature. And the falling action part is where you can tell them, you can give out the details about the aspects of the feature which helps solve the problem that you initially introduced. Okay, so an example of where we used it. So in many projects, what happens is a sales team is in touch with a customer. They are talking, and they are whenever they have a requirement, or say somebody is building a house. So the person who talks to the client and knows what kind of changes they want, how it should be painted, what stages it is in, all that communication between a customer and a company is done by a salesperson. But the progress is, the work is done by engineers and work teams, and they use a project management system. The tasks that they have to do. Say you are building a house, the house is painted. That information is updated in Zoho projects. It will be a task, right? Paint the house, done. 50, 60, 70, 80% done. What if you have to collect payment from the client after the house is painted? You don't know that information because the salesperson logs into CRM. So this is the problem that we first present. Collecting payments is difficult for you because you have to collect payment when the work finishes. You don't know when the work finishes because that is in projects where you don't have access. Then we say Zoho. If you have Zoho CRM and Zoho projects, you wouldn't have to worry about it at all because both are from Zoho and we integrate them. Okay. And then salesperson can see project tasks completed within CRM, because the integration will, you don't even have to go into Zoho projects. In the information about a particular contact, it will show you right there that all these tasks that are for this person are done. So right there you can, if a task is completed, the salesperson would be able to see it right there and then collect the payments. This is just one of the ways of writing a story. There are some other ways that I will leave you to think about. Building a list is a very famous and popular way. You say, here are 5 ways to do that, and then the person already wants to know what are the 5 ways. So that again raises questions and gets them to think about things. You take people on a journey. You say you start from here, and then for one of our features, Zoho Projects features Gantt charts for a blog post. We began saying, this looks like a new and hi-fi things, but did you know that Gantt charts have been around for 100 years? What happened when they were first introduced? How did they develop? They were used in the Second World War. It was used to build the biggest dam in the world. So you take the user on all that journey, they are fascinated. Like when you give the idea of a journey itself, they are hooked because they have to travel with you from the beginning to end. So these are all some ideas. You can think about them, and many of them will be covered in the rest of the workshop, or it would have already been covered. So this is all I have for you now. Thank you very much.